Good Monday afternoon, everybody. My name is Eli Robinson. I am the Chief Trivia Officer here at Water Cooler Trivia, bringing you a weekly trivia game for you, your coworkers, your friends, your families, your groups, your organizations, whatever it may be, to enjoy a little bit of competition, a little bit of trivia, and have a little bit of fun. You can find us online at watercoolertrivia.com, where we have a 4-week free trial. You can find me online at Chief Trivia Officer, and then we show up here on Twitch and YouTube and review all of the games every week. All right, so let's get into this week's round. It was called a March Mystery. We're bringing back our Mystery Round series. And this is how the introduction read. Hey there, Gumshoes. We could use your help again solving this week's Mystery Round.
Hi. Eli Robinson here, Chief Trivia Officer. Feels like everything's happening everywhere all at once. We could really use your help with this week's trivia round. It's a mystery. Bye.
Yes, it's a goofball right there, seemingly, needing help and introducing this week's game to you. It says you'll need to answer questions 1 through 9 and then help us figure out how they're all connected in question 10. Happy hunting. This is the first time we've included. It looks like 10% or fewer of the people who actually click to play the trivia are actually watching the video, which is an important learning for us. Although there was a clue in the video in that I both named it Everything Everywhere All at Once as well as referenced that in the clues. Here's how the results went. So this is one of the harder trivia rounds we've had in quite some time. I think it's the hardest one since an October Halloween themed round, in which the average was in the 6s. So what happens, right? The question ends up being a little bit more difficult, and you see a very, very flat results profile at the top. So there's a reason that it's very flat, mostly due to lack of participation for people who think the quiz is too hard. So you theoretically would have more people through the bottom or even not at the 10 level that are there. But this is very, very rare, right? Trivia knowledge is generally pretty, is dispersed in the world in a way that there's often a very, very big spike because there's a certain type of or amounts of questions that people know a lot of. To see 4 different scores having representation over 14% means that it was just very dispersed, and the type of information that we had was not necessarily known by a lot of people. We don't like the games to be this hard. We go for something that's a little bit more straightforward and a little bit easier, an average in the higher and 7s into low 8s. But ultimately, look, I think there's a lot of people, especially that are more aggressive in loving trivia, that would have liked it. We have easier games that have far lower, we have easier games that have far fewer perfect scores. And the reason for that is we often have 8 or 9 fairly straightforward questions, and then one question that's just really, really difficult, which means the perfect scores are 5 to 10%. But it's really a little bit counterintuitive for us to understand that even though perfect scores were the most common, the quiz was much, much harder than it normally is. So won't go over each and any of the individual questions this week. Just kind of want to go over the full theme. So it said, question 10 said, don't be a grouch. Help us solve the mystery. The answers to questions 1 through 9 are a list of winners who took home the biggest prize awarded at what annual March event. So only 18%, I think, of people would have gotten all of them correct. But assuming that you did, you would have seen that the answers were Oliver, Titanic, Casablanca, Argo, Platoon, Chicago, Tom Jones, Coda, and Rebecca. We wouldn't have expected that people knew that Tom Jones and Rebecca and Oliver were Best Picture winners, but movies like Titanic and Casablanca and Argo and Chicago, and then 2021, I think, winners, Coda, we think people would have been able to get. So it was, quite a few people were able to piece together that it was the Oscars. I think other than March Madness, there's not that many annual March events that people could have necessarily selected. So I think it was 76, 77% of people got this right. But I do want to have a brief conversation about the 2 types of mystery rounds that we really kind of have at our disposal in the way that we structure our games. So the first thing that we have, and I'm calling the standard questions 1 through 9, and then number 10, the themed question, is we can make the standard questions easy and then make the themed question hard. So in this way, basically what you're saying is you're trying to differentiate on whether or not people understand the theme. That would not have been what we did this time, but it's just hey, we're gonna ask 9 questions, and then it's like a puzzle. Can you figure out what all of these have in common? We want as many people to get 8 or 9 out of the 9 questions on the standard questions, because we really want people to like struggle in how they're all put together. Sometimes if you've been to pub trivia before, this will happen, is like you'll look at you'll just like look at the answers that you have for your round and you're like, man, like how are these things connected? And then the second, which is what we did this time, is where the standard questions are a little bit harder, but the themed question is easy, and then we kind of see it as a revealer. So what we would have imagined in this week's game is like, like people would be like going through the first 9 and like, yeah, this like is kind of tough. And then they get to question 10, which as you can see was like, don't be a grouch. And then it's like annual March event. The tiebreaker also referred to the Oscars. And like, oh, they're all Oscar movies. Awesome. And then you get to go back to 1 through 9 and use that piece of information to help you deduce what the Oscar winners are. Now, for Oliver, Tom Jones, and Rebecca, it probably didn't help. But for all of the other movies, we're like, oh, okay, that would have been cool. Like someone would have known that it's an Oscar winner. So we oscillate between these two. We talk about them a lot. It's like a difficult, I guess, intellectual thing to have in mind. But it's the way that we kind of look at what's going on. We hope you enjoyed the game. I think a lot of hardcore trivia people did. Once again, my name is Eli Robinson. I'm the Chief Trivia Officer here at Water Cooler Trivia. Next week, we're back with another themed round that I think people will really enjoy. Until then, keep on trimming on.